What's going on, everyone? So one of the biggest needs for the San Antonio Spurs this offseason is a center, at least a backup center. I personally am somebody that doesn't mind the idea of playing Wemby at the four because of the style in which he wants to play, more perimeter oriented, more three-point attempts, going and getting that center that could be that starter. But you need at least a backup. Right? And one of the free agent centers that are available is Luke Kornet. And he's a guy that many teams want to pry away from Boston. He's a guy that would be excellent in a backup role. There is some belief of like what would he look like in a starting role, or at least maybe starting level minutes, which you could have him be a backup and maybe give him a little more of an expanded role and kind of see what he can do because he's really good in limited minutes and he's had some big games when he's gotten that opportunity. So there's kind of this perception of like he's a guy that may be able to be a starter, but he's basically been a career backup. And we'll get more into the stats and whatnot here in a moment. But the San Antonio Spurs are one of the teams that are linked and interested in Luke Kornet, that they would love to bring him on in a backup role. Like I mentioned, need a center. He's 29 years old. He will be 30 next month. So going into the season, but that's fine. Right? He's still young enough to be a piece through this next contract. If you were to give him a new contract, not everyone has to be 20 years old on this roster, right? It'd be nice to have a couple vets, a couple guys with experience, a couple guys that have been there and done that can play a role, come in, kind of give guidance. Right? It's why I liked Chris Paul on the Spurs so much. Why I like Harrison Barnes on the Spurs so much. Right? Guys that are vets, have experience, have a little seasoning, but they also can give you quality production, right? Chris Paul played all 82 games, started all 82 games. It was actually really good for the Spurs. You look at Harrison Barnes, shot over 40% from three-point range, and again, was really good. It was hitting game winners and all kinds of stuff for the Spurs. A guy like Luke Kornet, I think, could kind of add to that. Be a guy that can come in, be a vet, be a good locker room presence, be a good mentor for the young guys, but actually give you some real production and solve a need in a role, right? So I look at a guy like a Luke Kornet as just that versatile type of big man that you could slot alongside Wemby at times, bring as a backup. I would personally prefer him as a backup. If you're going to go and get a starting center, I'd like somebody that is kind of more proven in the starting center role. I mean, the most games Luke Kornet has ever started in a season was his second year with the Knicks, in which he averaged 18, or not averaged, he played 18 games starting, right? That's the most. Last year was the second most, and it was 16 out of 73 games, right? So my thing is that, and I guess you could argue, like Spurs are a young enough team that doesn't have these championship expectations this year. So maybe you could do the Luke Kornet as your starting center experiment and kind of see and gauge how that goes. And if it works, great, then fine. If it doesn't, then it's like, hey, he can always just go back and default to our backup and we can go get a more clearer cut starting center. Right. So again, there's options there. It gives you a little flexibility and you can kind of make your decision accordingly. Also depends on what other centers become available. Because look, there's a handful of centers on the free agency market right now that make a ton of sense from the Spurs, from like Ayton to Day'Ron Sharpe to a Clint Capella, I think would make some sense, right? If you wanted to go kind of the more veteran route, you could go with like a Brook Lopez, right? Like, so if you're the Spurs, you're definitely in a position where you have options, which is good. Obviously, if you were to go get a guy like an Ayton, he's not going to want to come off the bench. He's going to want to start. So again, it depends on the type of center you find. Where Luke Kornet is a guy that's comfortable coming off the bench. He's built a career off of being that bench guy. He's one of the better bench kind of big men in the league. There is that kind of, the bench bigs, what are the gaps in between? But if you can get a quality bench big, it's very important. And Luke Kornet is one of those guys that is a quality bench big. But what can he provide? What does he do? What is his stats and his comps and all that stuff? Well, he is a true 7-footer, which is good. He's 7'1", 250, right? So he's not like one of those guys that's like 6'8", with like a 7'1" wingspan. No, he's legit 7'1", good size, good physicality, guy that's not shy for contact, guy that can kind of hustle and do the dirty work, which is something that I really want the Spurs to get. I want them to add guys that are willing to do the dirty work, guys that can do the grit. Because you have Wemby, right? You have De'Aaron Fox, you have Dylan Harper, right? You have those guys that, they're the stars that you don't really want them doing the dirty work. They have their role, and that's, kind of being the engines, right? But you look at a guy like a Stephon Castle, excellent at the dirty work. Carter Bryant, can he be that, right? Like, I want to see this Spurs team add kind of scrappers and just hustle guys and all those things in free agency, or if they pull off any trades or whatever. Right? Obviously, if Giannis or whoever, we'll figure that out when the time comes. But beyond that, I'd like to see just kind of these guys that can come in, understand and play their role, and will do the dirty work, make the hustle plays for you. I think that goes a real long way. So talk about a guy that's got good size, good interior presence, right? Can give you good production in a limited role. You don't have to run plays for him. You don't have to, have him be a focal point. You don't have to do anything crazy. Just throw him out there and he knows what to do. I love that about kind of these veteran centers. That's what you want. But what does he provide production-wise? Well, last year, 73 games played, 16 games started. As I mentioned, 18.6 minutes per game, which, by the way, is the most of his career, which is, again, why it's tough to take a guy to go, like, the most minutes you've ever played is 18 and a half minutes. We're going to take you from that to, 30 a night. It's tough, right? So it's why I like him as a backup primarily, but 18.6 minutes per game, 3.8 field goal attempts per game. He shot 66.8% from the floor, not a floor spacing big. He's a guy that, like I said, inside, interior, hustle, dirty work, rebound, offensive rebound, defend, all of that stuff. 67.5% from 2-point range on 3.8 attempts, 66.8% from the field. Free throws, 69.1%. He is a career 77% free throw shooter, but on 0.8 attempts, so not even a full attempt, where last year he was 1.3 attempts and was 69% rebounding. 5.3 rebounds, including 2.6 offensive rebounds. It's 2.6 offensive and 2.7 defensive. He had basically the exact same number of offensive rebounds as he did defensive rebounds, which would be great for a team like this. A guy that can go in there and offensive rebound, especially with Wemby wanting to take 10 threes a game and all that stuff. Be nice to have an interior presence that can go in there, knock down the three ball with a level of consistency, right? And rebound the basketball. That's what I meant. Rebound. Thinking Wemby shooting. Right? Getting a rebounder that can help rebound with a level of consistency. That's what I meant to say. But yes. Again, 5.3 rebounds, 1.6 assists, half a steal, a full block, and 6 points per game. So again, excellent production for a guy in limited minutes, very limited minutes. You look at his per 36. Now, per 36 doesn't tell you everything, but it's kind of to give you an idea of what would he look like if you were to have him be your primary starter. Now, keep in mind, there's a lot of guys that are really good. Like, you give him 15 minutes a night, excellent, right? As soon as he plays that 16th minute, god awful. Again, I'm not saying Luke Kornet is that guy. He's had some good games, he's had some solid games, he's had some monster games in, hey, I'm going to start in a pinch type role. But again, it's one thing on a random, Tuesday. It's another thing when it's like, hey, we need you to do that every single night, night in and night out, game in and game out. Can you do that for me? No? Okay, right? But what would he be? Be just under 12 points, 10 rebounds, including 5 offensive rebounds. He'd be 5 offensive, 5.2 defensive rebounds, 10.3 rebounds total, 3 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks per game and per 36. So a guy that, again, does basically everything out there on the basketball court that you could ask for him to do, knows his role, plays his role, can be that hustle player, be that dirty work player. I look at him more, like I mentioned, as a backup, not as your starter. He's not a guy that I look at as hey, this is the guy that I want to bring in as our primary guy next to Wemby. If you were to bring in that guy, let's say you went and got an 8, right? I still am okay if you bring in a Luke Kornet, have him kind of be, again, that quality backup off the bench that can play a role, right? So even if you do get that starter, it doesn't hurt to have that backup, right? And look, you're going to need multiple bigs anyway. Yes, Wemby is your starting center, but because of his offensive versatility, he can play the 4, I believe, if you have the right complementary centers. But Anyway, as always, this is a discussion, pass question you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out as we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.